for question period. I recognize the Leader of His Majesty's Official Opposition.
Well, good morning, Speaker, and my question is for the Premier. Yesterday, the Premier said he doesn't like answering questions in question period because there are too many lies, and he can't call them out, apparently. What I have been raising is that the minister handpicked low-scoring applicants to receive skills development grants, despite warnings from ministry experts. The minister even admitted this on live radio, but I will ask the Premier, is that a lie?
I recognize the Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, without question, we've seen selective information and efforts for partisanship purposes to smear a fund that's training men and women in the construction sector, that's helping support over almost 110,000 people find employment within 60 days or less, Speaker. We've worked through this program through each successive round to implement improvements, something the Leader of the Opposition hasn't acknowledged or recognized. These are answers that have been provided in this place to improve the program that is changing lives. Again, 100,000+ people employment within 60 days or less, Speaker. It's supporting incredible increases in young people in registering for apprenticeships, declining apprenticeship numbers. You need apprentices if you're going to build the hospitals, the schools we say we want to build, and we fully intend to do it. And that's why we're supporting men and women in the trades, getting young people. We've seen a historic increase in the number of women registering for apprenticeships, and it's only going to continue.
Supplementary.
Any apprenticeships out there, but anyways, back to the Premier. I don't take being called a liar very lightly, so I do expect some answers here. This week, I've been talking about Connex Technologies CEO Sayan Navaratnam, who was hit with a 3-year ban by the Ontario Securities Commission for his role in the Face Drive scandal. We all remember that. Who could forget? This guy was charged with misleading the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a certain kind of low. The government still gave him not 1, but 2 skills development grants. So back to the Premier. Is that a lie too?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, again, organizations are assessed as an organization, Speaker. They're assessed with a variety of metrics. A risk assessment process is run. We've implemented financial audits for organizations, Speaker. And that's what we're going to do. These are assessing the merits of the programs, not those individuals, Speaker. And we're going to make sure that we work hard to support people in the AI sector, Speaker. This is disrupting workers of this province, and workers want to know that they have a government that's going to help them with respect to AI disruption. President Trump's tariffs, we're supporting Unifor and other automotive key unions in the response. In the skilled trades to actually build the Ring of Fire, something we've said we're going to do, partnering with the federal government and others on major national projects like new nuclear, small modular reactors. We're supporting young folks in entering meaningful careers in apprenticeships. That's what we're doing. That's what this fund is doing. It's changing lives, and we're proud to support the people of Ontario.
Final supplementary.
You know, tell that to the people in Brampton, the 3,000 Unifor workers who are losing their jobs. The only one who is deflecting and, frankly, hiding from the facts here is the Premier and, frankly, this Minister of Labour as well. For the last 7 weeks, I have raised concerns about government funneling taxpayer money to hand-picked applicants with close connections to this government, and every time the Premier has dodged the questions. I have asked the Minister of Labour to resign. I have asked him to be fired. Is the Premier refusing to fire his Minister of Labour just to protect himself?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, we take our orders from the people who elect us, not from the leader opposite, Speaker. The people we serve in the province of Ontario, Speaker. Let's talk, Speaker, about Unifor. That member said she was going to be there in the rain to the Unifor workers, and she never showed up. Yeah. She never showed up, Speaker. We were there speaking to the leaders of that union, Speaker, talking with them about ways we can support them. We've invested through SDF, Speaker. We value the challenge. We value what they do, Speaker. They challenge us for better public policy. They actually bring ideas for sound public policy, something we never get from those members opposite, Speaker. That's why we've made incredible investments that have attracted billions in the automotive sector, and the Premier knows, and the leaders of that union know, you can't negotiate from your knees, and they know that the Premier will never turn his back on those workers, ever.
Question, the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the Premier has already turned his back on all those workers. This morning, Trillium reported that another company that's owned by Sayan Navaratnam, Knowledge Hook, received a skills development grant. Mr. Navaratnam was fined by the Ontario Securities Commission for misleading the public with taxpayer dollars during the COVID-19 pandemic. None of this was secret, right? We all knew, but the minister gave Mr. Navaratnam money anyway. Whenever this government has a choice between corporate insiders and the public, they always choose insiders, every single time. So back to the Premier, why did your Minister of Labour insist on giving millions of taxpayer dollars to someone who has been sanctioned by the Ontario Securities Commission?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, here we go again. Look at the publicly available guidelines for SDF. Dollars don't go to individuals, Speaker. They go to organizations. And by the way, that's not the CEO of the organization Knowledge Hook, Speaker. And let's look at what that group does. They've partnered with Toronto District School Board, Peel District School Board. That member herself said that we have to bolster teacher training. And that's exactly what we're doing. We've brought in math proficiency tests for teachers. We're strengthening math training for students, Speaker. And they're doing incredible work. They've got former Mexican president on their board, Speaker, leaders in the industry, and we're even awarded an award from the former Premier Kathleen Wynne and Ontario Centre for Innovation, Speaker. This is a group that's helping train teachers. You know, I expected her to oppose building trades and unions like LIUNA, like operating engineers, carpenters, UA. I didn't expect her to oppose training for teachers, Speaker.
Back to the Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Speaker, that's some wild behavior over there when Santa Claus is coming to town. Let me tell you, there's going to be some coal in those stockings over there. We are seeing the same pattern that we always do with this government. Navaratnam donated thousands of dollars to Conservative Party members. His company hired a former Ford government staffer as their lobbyist, and then guess what? He gets $2.5 million, not from Santa Claus, but from the Skills Development Fund and that Minister of Labour. This has become the standard for this government because everybody is told very clearly they have to pay to play. We know it because they tell us. Is the Premier rewarding disgraced CEOs because they are his party's donors?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, they can mock and make Christmas references all they want, but on this side of the House, when 100,000+ people go from underemployment to employment, that's something to be proud of. What else are we doing, Speaker? They wanted to give pink slips to men and women who work in our nuclear sector. What are we doing? We're refurbishing Pickering. We're then building small modular reactors. We're exporting that technology to the world. We're building new nuclear, 90% of which the supply chain is here in Ontario. And we have a fund that's going to support workers in training, Speaker. They've opposed those folks. That is why unions have abandoned them, Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition spoke, and after her disgraced review by members, Speaker, she spoke about restoring confidence with Labour. Well, newsflash, if you oppose every project that puts those people to work, you're not supporting Labour, you're against them. And they see it exactly for what it is.
Final supplementary.
Well, dance faster there, Minister, because I got to tell you, I'm old enough to remember when these very members were calling out the Liberal government before them for their pay-to-play schemes. They were in power then, and they were calling them out in opposition, and now they are following the same playbook. 3,000 workers in Brampton that I met with this week, 1,000 in Sault Ste. Marie, 1,000 workers in Ingersoll. They have lost their jobs under your government's watch. Families across this province are trying to stretch a dollar. They are struggling to make ends meet at this very moment. And this Premier, doesn't seem to care. That is the message that they are getting every single day from this government. So I want to know from the Premier, why did the Premier let donors and insiders cut the line for skills development funds to keep the gravy train flowing?
Minister of Labour.
Talk about affordability in this country, something from coast to coast to coast that concerns Canadians. But what does the Leader of the Opposition do? She opposes every measure for energy independence and energy security, something that is driving down energy prices, providing stability in the energy sector. She opposed it. When we talked about removing the tolls on 413, she opposed removing tolls. She opposed license fees. Speaker, she even opposed hunting and angling and waiving fees there. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy for folks in rural Ontario. They've opposed every measure we've put in place to put more money back in people's pockets, Speaker. And then, when we want to create the opportunity for economic investment, we've significantly improved revenue for foreign direct investment in this province. They oppose every measure, Speaker. They oppose building new schools, new hospitals, Highway 413, Bradford Bypass, and the Ring of Fire. These are all tangible things that are putting people to work and providing better opportunities with.
Question. I recognize the Leader of the Third Party.
Thanks very much, Speaker. And yesterday, the Premier vigorously defended giving tens of millions of dollars to people we can't trust. We have the ongoing investigation by the OPP into Keel Digital Solutions, and then we have Mr. Sayan Navaratnam, whose company received a skills development grant despite him being sanctioned seriously by the Ontario Securities Commission. And then also took all of us on a ride in the pandemic for $2 million. Still gave him money. But we learned today that another of his companies, Knowledge Hook, received $1.5 million from the Ontario government. So, Speaker, the question is simple. Why does the Premier continue to give millions of dollars to people who we know are bad actors?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, again, this is an organization that was praised by the former Liberal leader, Premier Kathleen Wynne, Speaker. This is an organization that has partnered with school boards all over Ontario, that has attracted leaders on their board that include the former President of Mexico, Speaker. This is an organization that's helping empower a next generation of teachers with proficiency in math. I mean, Skills Development Fund is supporting from manufacturing halls to long-term care facilities to union training halls to supporting teachers, Speaker. We know we need more teachers. This government, this minister have done an incredible job building new schools, a new school in my own community. You're going to need teachers to staff that school, and we have a plan that's supporting a next generation of teachers. We're going to keep doing that, Speaker, to build a stronger Ontario. Again, they've got no idea, no plan for jobs. Just partisanship, Speaker. We're focused on meaningful training opportunities for.
Supplementary.
So, Speaker, my dad used to say, be careful who you hang out with, because you'll be judged by the company that you keep. And as it turns out, Knowledge Hook, the lobbyist for Knowledge Hook, is no other than David DePaul, who was the Director of Stakeholder Relations in the Premier's office. All right. Before that, he was actually Michael Ford's Chief of Staff. So I guess the Premier likes to keep it all in the family, keep it tight, right? So you have to wonder, do you have to get a former Premier's office staffer, or maybe a current one, to make securities violations go away, taking the government for a ride go away, so you can get a skills development grant?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, again, selective. We talked about Hospitality Workers Union, whose head of GR is a former staff member of Kathleen Wynne. But none of that matters. I see a remarkable young man in him, a remarkable young man who wants to stand up for hospitality workers, who met me on my first week on the job. And I didn't give two hoots who he worked for in the past, because it was what he was doing and the impact he had on training. That's what we're focused on, training a next generation of teachers, training a next generation of young people to enter meaningful careers in apprenticeships, working in construction, building new schools, schools they closed, building new highways, highways they oppose, unlocking the potential of the Ring of Fire, they oppose, supporting us on the nuclear sector, again, stuff they oppose, Speaker. So bring forward a meaningful plan for jobs. Put it in this place. Let's debate public policy and stop smearing, including staffers of your former government. They're in job too.
Leader of the third party.
Well, just like I've said, I don't know, thousands of times before, like the Greenbelt, all roads lead to the Premier's office. So the company Face Drive, the one that took us for a ride for $2 million, it changed its name to Steer, right? Changed its name to Steer, and then it changed its name to Argo. And I think just to try to cover their trail. So in September, they got a new head of business operations, Jenna Bendayan, who until August of this year was the head of priority initiatives in the Premier's office. That's a pretty tangled web, Speaker. So this all stinks, and it lands right at the feet of the Premier. So when is the Premier going to come clean about the grift that is the Skills Development Fund?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, again, it's about impact supporting teachers, Speaker, supporting them in all of the school boards that they're partnered with: Toronto, Peel, Ottawa, Durham, Halton, Hamilton, Simcoe. I mean, let's look at some of the testimonials here. Ashanti, a grade 6 teacher in Toronto, who uses a knowledge hook to help tailor teaching math skills that match the unique needs and learning styles of her students, Speaker. Claudine, grade 5 teacher, but through 20 years has noticed math anxiety in young students. These are the substantial things we see, and so we're trying to address that with the educators at the front of the class, Speaker, providing supports for parents and families. Again, all of these things they oppose, Speaker. I can't understand why we're opposing, but when you empower young people with proficiency in math, they see right through their tax schemes of the Liberals who just want to tax them to death. When we empower them to stand on their own 2 feet, you know what, Speaker? They see right through what the Liberal government did. Tax them to death.
Question. Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Speaker. And it's close to Christmas, and the great thing about Christmas is there's always an ability to redeem oneself. So, Speaker, we all agreed when we pulled American liquor off the shelves. It was the right thing to do. We sent a message. It felt good. And you know what would be even better? Is to do some good at home with that action. Not just let this liquor collect dust in a warehouse. So what I'm calling on the Premier to do today, asking the Premier, all of us, can we sell that American liquor, use the profit, and give it to Ontario's food banks, have it do some good? There are more people than ever are going to visit food banks in Ontario this year. It's going to be really tough.
Question.
It would help a lot of people. So will the Premier instruct the LCBO to sell that surplus liquor that we have collecting dust and use that money, the profits, to give to Ontario food banks?
I recognize the member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the member opposite for the question. What we have seen since we took the American liquor off the shelf is a massive increase in sales in Canadian product, Ontario in particular. 79% increase in Ontario VQA wine alone. Now, the member opposite may want to support American companies, but this government, our Premier has said we need to get behind the people of Ontario. We need to support all of those workers in Ontario. And what are we seeing? Record numbers of people who are employed in this industry as a result of that. And we will continue making sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to protect the people of Ontario, to increase the opportunities for jobs, and to make sure that Ontario is the best place in the G7 to invest in.
I recognize the member for Don Valley West.
Thank you, Speaker. According to Daily Bread and North York Harvest Food Banks, visits to food banks reached another all-time high this year, 4.1 million visits in Toronto alone, and they're up in my riding of Don Valley West too, at the TNO Food Bank. What do we hear from this government on that? Silence. Speaker, other provinces are stepping up to help their local food banks by selling off the U.S. alcohol on the shelves. We know the PC government is holding $80 million of U.S. alcohol in storage. The finance minister said that about $2 million of that will expire over the next 6 or 7 months. Basically, it will all be poured down the drain. So my question to the Premier, will he pour all that U.S. booze down the drain or let the LCBO sell it to help food banks feed families?
Back to the member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is a government that has done everything possible to protect the people of Ontario, to protect the industries in Ontario. And when we take a look at the measures of removing the American product off of the shelves, what this has meant, not just an increase in VQA wine sales, it has also seen an increase in craft beer. We have seen an increase in craft cider. In fact, craft cider is now the fastest growing industry in the alcohol file in Ontario. And all of this translates to jobs, Speaker. This is about protecting the people of Ontario. This is about doing things that increase opportunities for employment. And it is the right measure to do this. To put American alcohol back on the shelves would mean we're saying to all of those Ontario employees, you're not valued. We want the Americans more than we want people in Ontario to work, and we disagree with that philosophy from the Liberal Party.
I recognize the member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Thank you, Speaker. Well, actually, there's 4 provinces that are putting that surplus United States liquor to good use. Yes. They're selling it, and they're donating the profits to support people in need. And the need in Ontario has never been greater. Here in Toronto, the Daily Bread Food Bank in my riding of Etobicoke Lakeshore reports more than 4.1 million food bank visits in the past year. That's a record 340% increase since 2019. To the Premier, will he make this commitment to support struggling Ontarians this Christmas season and donate liquor profits to food banks?
Member for Peterborough Kawartha.
Madam Speaker, I am appalled that the member opposite has stood up here and said Canadian people, Ontario jobs should not be protected. I'm appalled that the member opposite is supporting American companies by that kind of a statement. This government will not do that. We are here protecting the people of Ontario. We're ensuring that people in Ontario have jobs, that they have the ability to go out and buy the things that they need to buy. We want to make sure that we're protecting the workers in this province, and we'll continue to do that. We'll take no lessons from the things coming from that Liberal member.
Question. I recognize the member for Kiwetinoong.
Miigwech, Speaker. I know everywhere you look, there is an ad for the Ring of Fire. We saw them on TV during the World Series. Yeah. They are showing up in countless other places, all over downtown Toronto. But far away from Kiwetinoong, to the Premier, the public needs to know, deserves to know actually, how many taxpayer dollars have gone towards the self-serving campaign. Yes.
I recognize the Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, and I just want to re-emphasize the importance of the Ring of Fire. The wealth that is in the ground that we can extract with our partners will be transformative for this province, Madam Speaker. It is billions upon billions of dollars of investment, and we want the people of Ontario to know that the investments will cascade throughout the entire province to manufacturing and development in southern Ontario all the way through the north. And it's an opportunity for us to look for and engage with partners, both First Nations and others, Madam Speaker. And so we are getting the word out that when the Americans talk about the critical minerals, they're talking about our critical minerals. So it's important that we take a leadership role. We put literally a stake in the ground, and we get the job done. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Back to the member for Kiwetinoong.
I was simply asking for an amount, and those aren't your minerals. That's right. We have to understand. One of the things that we have to understand, that this government needs to understand, your approach to Bill 5, your approach to Ring of Fire, and even these ads I talk about, do not trump the inherent rights of the First Nations that live on these homelands. This government's approach will not work. Let me be very clear on that. This government is getting very bad advice on this work. It will not happen. Speaker, will this government commit to pulling all of the Ring of Fire ads and stop misleading the public?
Hear, hear. I'm going to ask the member to withdraw for the words misleading the public.
Withdraw.
I recognize the Minister of Energy and Mines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, what cannot stand is that it takes 15 years to build a mine in the province. What is unacceptable in a world where China, the great violator of human rights, a country that has electricity using coal power, that they triumph every day, members opposite work together to landlock our resources. We can build in partnership, but stagnation is not an option. Our Premier campaigned on a one project, one process vision to cut the permit timelines by 50%. We have made that a reality in partnership with First Nation communities because billions of dollars of investment, the improvement of quality of life, 10,000 jobs are on the line unless we work together as legislators to get minerals out of the ground, the most ethical resources on earth. We all should be proud of this country, proud of our workers, proud of the ethics that underpin it. You should stand up for Ontario's resources. Get them out of the ground.
Question. I recognize the member for Canada Carleton.
Thank you, Speaker. We've asked the President of the Treasury Board several questions about the audit process. Most times, it seems like she's not been permitted to respond. There are serious questions around why would the government continue to give Keel Digital Solutions more money, even after serious irregularities were found? This matter was ultimately referred to the OPP to investigate. It's a simple question, Speaker. Why would the government continue to give a company more money after irregularities had been found and the company was flagged for forensic audit?
I recognize the Minister of Colleges and Universities.
Thank you, Speaker. A simple question deserves a simple answer, and I think I've mentioned it a few times in this House. Within 24 hours, we reported it to the OPP once it was recommended. Maybe the third party's just not listening, Speaker, but let me tell you what we are doing for our publicly funded post-secondary system that they continue to vote against, Speaker. We've invested almost $2.5 billion into the post-secondary system within the last 18 months. And again, the leader of the third party, he voted against that, Speaker, but we'll continue to be there for the post-secondary sector with strategic investments into the sector, whether it's STEM, skilled trades, nursing or teaching seats, Speaker. We'll continue to be there while the NDP vote against it and the Liberals voted against it as well, Speaker. We will not rely on them to support the post-secondary sector. We'll continue to be there for the post-secondary sector, Speaker.
Back to the member for Canada Carleton.
Thank you, Speaker. That wasn't an answer to the question. That was deflection, distraction, misdirection. We get it. An audit was conducted. Irregularities were found. The police were contacted. We get it. But the government kept giving more money to Keel Digital Solutions even after they knew all these things had happened. Back to the President of the Treasury Board, how could she have condoned such actions?
Minister of Colleges and Universities.
I guess the member from Canada Carleton didn't hear me when within 24 hours, Speaker, we reported it to the OPP. 24 hours. Within 24 hours, Speaker. But again, they don't want to talk about the publicly assisted post-secondary system. I do, Speaker. We've invested significant amount of money into the system, whether it's the $1.3 billion that we invested in the system to stabilize the sector, because their federal counterparts created chaos right across all of Canada, Speaker. But you know what? They'll continue to vote against our strategic investments into the post-secondary sector, including the $1 billion they voted against in Budget 2020. 2025, Speaker. $1 billion, $750 million for priority STEM programming, Speaker. 20,000 new funded seats that they voted against, Speaker. I don't know how they stand up and ask these questions when they continue to vote against our post-secondary system, Speaker.
Question. I recognize the member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade. President Trump's tariffs are changing the investment landscape across the globe. This unprecedented attack on critical sectors is forcing us to build a future that moves away from an over-reliance on the U.S. Businesses from across the world are also recognizing that the volatile environment in the U.S. does not give them the certainty they need to make long-term investments. While there are challenges for Ontario, there is also immense opportunity. We are the stable and reliable partner that companies from across the globe are looking for. Speaker, can the minister highlight how our government has been working to attract more investment and bring more companies to Ontario?
I recognize the Minister of Economic Development.
Madam Speaker, today is the day to say thank you. Thank you to the 409 international companies who invested nearly $40 billion in Ontario, creating 24,711 jobs last year. So thank you to them. Madam Speaker, that is an increase of 400% since 2019. And despite the unprecedented economic uncertainty driven by Trump's tariffs, this year again looks promising. Last week, Ontario landed in 5 days in 5 cities, $1 billion in new investments, creating 770 jobs last week alone. The week before that, we joined the Premier in St. Thomas at Vianode, who are investing $3.2 billion, creating 1,000 jobs. Speaker, we are going to continue to ensure that Ontario remains the best location for worldwide companies to enter.
Question, the member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that. Global competition for investment is fierce, and our government continues to ensure Ontario is top of the mind for companies across the world. We're promoting our strengths and building on our successes to date. After years of liberal high taxes, we've restored Ontario's ability to compete for job-creating investment. We've lowered the annual cost of business by $12 billion annually, making it easier for companies to come and set up and grow. Speaker, as President Trump's tariffs continue to reshape global supply chains and push companies to rethink where they operate, can the minister share how we're ensuring Ontario remains the best place for businesses to invest, expand, and create more good-paying jobs?
Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation, Trade.
Madam Speaker, we have now secured in Ontario $113 billion in investment from companies around the world. And more importantly, they have hired 113,000 people in the province of Ontario. 1 million more people are working today in the province than the day we were elected. 70,000 new jobs were created in the last 3 months alone. But, Speaker, make no mistake, these are challenging times, but Ontario is showing our resilience. We're taking actions to build on that progress. We're tearing down international trade barriers. We're adding $200 billion to our country's GDP. We're going to continue to bring investments from around the globe.
Response.
We will come out of this once-in-a-generation crisis stronger than ever, Speaker.
I recognize the member from Mushkegowuk, James Bay.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Access to health care in Northern Ontario is in a crisis. Patients face year-long waits for specialists, and referrals outside of the region are often rejected due to the strict catchment rule, creating a two-tier system that leaves Northerners behind. To the Premier, cancer and disease do not discriminate based on where you live. So why does the Ontario healthcare system?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do to expand access in Northern Ontario. I point to one program in particular that is in its second year in Ontario. Of course, that's Practice Ready Ontario, giving those opportunities for people who trained in other jurisdictions across the world. And now we have Practice Ready Ontario communities such as Bracebridge, Cochrane, Gore Bay, Greater Sudbury, Kenora, Kincardine, Listowel, Little Current. Speaker, I could go on and on. The point is, when we make opportunities for people to be able to train and work in Northern Ontario, they absolutely embrace it. When I look at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine doubling the number of learners that we've been able to get embedded and having opportunities in Northern Ontario, and the stats show when people train and practice in a community, they are far more likely to stay in those communities. Those are the changes that, frankly, the member opposite continues to vote against. But we, as a government, under the leadership of Premier Ford, will make those investments because we know Northern.
Back to the member from Mushkegowuk, James Bay.
Madame la Présidente, à la ministre. Ces belles paroles ne répondent pas aux besoins des gens du Nord. Et voici la vraie réalité du Nord. 6 mois d'attente pour une biopsie de la glande thyroïde. Plus de 2 ans en gynécologie. Jusqu'à 3 ans en neurologie.
3 years for neurology, and we cannot have a male family doctor. This is the reality in the North. Why does the government continue to create a system where people in the North are neglected and putting in danger their health?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, when the Ontario government, under the leadership of Premier Ford, expanded the Northern Ontario School of Medicine, which is now offering an additional 108 seats, nearly doubling their capacity, what did the member opposite do? He voted against it. When we expanded the Northern Ontario Resident Streamlining Training and Reimbursement, commonly called North Star, a program which reimburses medical residents for travel and accommodation expenses when completing clinical assignments in Northern Ontario health regions, what did the member opposite and his party do? They voted against it. 88 medical residents have participated in the North Star program, providing over 3,000 days of coverage in 25 Northern Ontario communities. Speaker, I could go on, but the point is, when we make investments, Northern Ontario benefits. And if the member opposite really wants to help his communities, he will step up and say, this is good for my community, this is good for Northern Ontario, and I will support it.
Question, I recognize the member for Ottawa-Vanier.
Merci, Speaker. Depuis plus de 25 ans, l'éducation publique de langue française est celle qui connaît la plus forte croissance en Ontario. Les inscriptions ont plus que doublé.
Registration have more than doubled. Today we are in a crisis caused by a lack of educators and a lack of infrastructure. We have 100,000 schools who do not have access to a francophone schools and without supplementary funding. How can the government say that they respected the constitutional obligation of Article 23 of the Chart when they are not investing the necessary resources to offer the students the right and the real access and equitable access of a school in French language?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The member will know, in fact, I was just in Ottawa on Friday, last Friday, to announce significant funding for an expansion of a school, of a French school in her riding, actually, I think it was, frankly. There has been a significant increase in funding towards our French education partners, over $2.2 billion in funding. It's an average of about 19,000, over 19,000 per pupil in that sector. And part of the reason we're making such dramatic investments on the French language side is partly because the popularity of French language education has exploded across the province of Ontario, not just in our French language school boards, but also in our English language school boards, where we're seeing more and more movement towards, sorry, I always forget the immersion, French immersion in our English boards as well. I know that the Minister of Colleges and Universities put more funding in to have more French teachers. So all in all, a significant amount of investments because the system is a good system. It is a system that is giving our students the best opportunity to succeed. And
back to the member for Ottawa-Vanier.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We recognize that the Francophone system is a good system, but the problems to which are confronted the French school boards are not linked to the work of French counselors, but they are due to the lack of funding. The Minister of Finance has said that they will not touch the funding, but they are putting in place some structures such as the offices that could remove some powers from the school counselor, like what happened in Quebec, and the minister can guarantee today clearly that every initiative from his government will respect not only the existence of a Francophone school counselor, but also their real power and control as protected by the Constitution.
Back to the Minister of Education.
Oui, Madame la Présidente. Comme j'ai déjà dit à ce gouvernement,
already said it to this government will always respect the chart and the Constitution. That's why we have made a lot of investments in the Francophone education, and especially at the same time, it's real that we want to ensure that our students have the necessary resources to succeed, and cela signifie
will be challenged, and every trustee across the province. I've said this on a number of occasions, and I'm not going to back down on it just because the Liberals, an arrogant, outdated party, do not agree. It may be. You're right. It is. You're right. It's Christmas. It's Christmas for students, parents, and teachers in the province of Ontario because they finally have a government that actually cares about them. That's why it's Christmas. Now, the party opposite is. I mean, you see how angry they get when you call them arrogant and outdated, right?
Question. I recognize the member for Eglinton Lawrence.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunity. Speaker, intimate partner violence has a devastating impact on women, children, and families in every part of our province. Through the Standing Committee on Justice Policy, this House moved to undertake an in-depth study on intimate partner violence 2 years ago, and to hear directly from survivors, frontline organizations, and experts about what more needs to be done. Speaker, the member from Kitchener South Hespeler has shown tremendous leadership throughout this work. She has been a tireless advocate for this issue, playing a key role in the committee's work, listening to survivors, championing their voices, and helping to shape the committee's report. Speaker, can the Associate Minister share how the work of this committee, including the leadership of the member from Kitchener South Hespeler, is helping to continue our government's efforts to address intimate partner violence?
I recognize the Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunities.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the member of Eglinton Lawrence for that question. Madam Speaker, I also want to take a moment to recognize the member from Kitchener South Hespeler for the incredible work she has done in preparing a report on intimate partner violence. Madam Speaker, her compassion and diligence she has brought to this study has been incredible. Through the Standing Committee on Justice Policy, members heard from survivors, from families, Indigenous partners, service providers, police, and community organizations from across Ontario who shared their stories and the recommendations. Their testimony makes it clear that intimate partner violence is a serious and persistent problem. And as Associate Minister of Women's Social and Economic Opportunities, my focus is on making sure women have safety, stability, and economic independence they need to build a better future for themselves and their families. And the committee's work and the report that the NDP shamefully called slop will help inform and strengthen our government's initiative.
Back to the member for Eglinton North.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the Associate Minister for her response. Speaker, this report on intimate partner violence is the result of extensive work by this House. Over 2 years and many months, the committee has heard from survivors, frontline workers, and experts. They have held long days of hearings, listened to more than 150 witnesses, and reviewed a substantial record of written submissions. The member from Kitchener South Hespeler did the hard work of pulling that evidence together into a draft report so that the committee could review and finalize its work. Instead of staying at the table to work through the report, I saw that the opposition members chose to walk out of the process. That decision spoke louder than 1,000 words about how seriously they take this issue. Speaker, can the Associate Minister tell the House how our government is focused on turning this work into action for women and survivors?
Back to the Associate Minister.
You know, intimate partner violence is not an issue for slogan or quick clips. It's a devastating reality for women and families in every part of our province and country. That is why the committee worked through long hearings, heard from survivors and frontline organizations, gave their time and shared their stories, and why the member from Kitchener South Hespeler devoted so much of her effort preparing a draft report that reflects that record. And when some members chose to walk out of reporting instead of staying and doing the detailed work to edit and finalize the report, that act of walking out spoke for itself. Our government members stayed. We stayed because survivors stayed and shared their stories, and we will never walk out on them. Speaker, I did not come here to play political games. I'm here to stand with women across the province and help survivors build a safer province for them and their families. And we will use this work that committee has done and the report to drive the action and add to the $1.4 billion that we've committed.
Question. I recognize the member for Niagara Falls. I recognize the member for Niagara Falls.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Premier. My local hospitals are in crisis. Emergency rooms wait times are pushing 10 hours, and frontline staff are exhausted from chronic underfunding and short staff. Last week, Niagara Health announced 100 layoffs, and the workers are on edge. Who's going to lose their jobs? The Premier has caused the conditions where the very people who keep our hospitals running will lose their jobs. And now, in the middle of flu season, the government's underfunding will make wait times worse and put lives at risk. Why won't the Premier properly fund hospitals so Niagara Health can cancel all layoffs and ensure patients get the care they need and deserve and save their lives? Thank you.
I recognize the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker. You know, as we continue to fund our hospital partners, almost $1 billion, 4% annually, we see that they have the capacity to be able to look carefully at their individual organizations to make sure that they are providing exceptional care. We are doing that through a process, a 3-year process that ensures they can take that look very closely at their individual organizations, make assessments. Having said that, we have and we will continue to invest in our hospitals. As I said, over 5% annually on their base budget. Why do we do that? Because we know that when we have strong hospitals, when we have emergency departments and ORs and ICUs that have the capacity, we are able to look after our most vulnerable. We'll continue to do that work, And part of that work is working very closely with our hospital partners to make sure they are assessing their organization.
I recognize the member for St. Catharines.
Thank you, Speaker. Through you to the Minister, you brag about investments. There's 98 residents, healthcare workers that are losing their job because of your mismanagement of funds. Speaker, through you to the Minister, families with children, young people trying to survive and save up for a home, single people who don't have a second income to rely on. These are the healthcare workers who will lose their jobs just before Christmas because of this government's financial mismanagement. Through you to the Premier, Speaker, instead of leaving workers in the dark, will you shed a light on any plans to cut additional programs like senior care, community clinics, or an entire hospital department altogether? Premier, Ontarians deserve to know, who are you planning to sacrifice next?
Minister of Health.
You know, Speaker, I hear the member opposite spouting, frankly, fallacies. We know that the changes that are being made, I withdraw. I see the work that our hospital partners are doing to make sure that the assessments are ensuring absolutely critical frontline care. You know, it really speaks to the difference between that party and the party in power, and that is we're not willing to just continue status quo. We want to expand access in our provincial hospital system. We want to ensure, which is why Monday I was able to announce an expansion of community diagnostic surgical centres, hips and knees that are going to be able to assist 20,000 people over the next 2 years to get those critical services. We are protecting our hospital capacity by actually making more options available, whether it is through expanded access.
Question. The member for Kingston and the Islands.
Speaker, Wolfe Island is in decline. The medical clinic closed, contractors won't work there, tourism jobs wiped out, young families moving away. In September, Marysville Public School had only 2 students registered. The median age was 50 years old in 2011. In 2021, it was 60. The culprit, unreliable ferry service. Wolfe Island needs this Premier to station 2 paramedics on Wolfe Island, just like Pelee Island, which has less people, or number 2, pay to speed up completion of the Kingston Ferry Dock, which is 4 years behind schedule, or 3, bring money to the table and talk to people in Kingston who have trained Marine officers for years and know how to get more trained. Will this Premier protect this corner of rural Ontario and do these things?
Minister of Transportation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We continue to make investments into our ferry system across the province, and that member knows we've worked with him and many of the residents in that area to continue improving access, not only from our ferries, but also in general on the program. Madam Speaker, our government has invested over $70 billion into public transit. A key part of that continues to be ensuring that all ferry operations across the province continue to operate. We'll continue to work with a member on his concerns around paramedics and ultimately see how we can support him in that as well. Thank you.
Back to the member for Kingston and the Islands.
Speaker, the Premier should know that people on Wolfe Island are talking lawsuits now because of unpredictable and unending ferry disruptions. Here are the top 3 causes. Number 1, paramedic calls. Will he permanently station paramedics on the island? Pelee Island has them, and less people live there. 2, backup generators break down because until the Kingston Ferry Dock's charging station is completed, backup power is used more than it was designed for. The dock is 4 years behind schedule. Get it done. 3, shortages of captains and mates. Like he's done for other skilled workers, he can incentivize people to enter that career. Come to Kingston, where we know how to train them. Will the Premier protect this corner of rural Ontario and do these things?
Minister of Transportation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I urge that member to also speak with the municipality with respect to the paramedics and the funding for that as well. We are always happy to support initiatives that are brought forward. But ultimately that responsibility stands with the municipal government as well. That being said, Madam Speaker, we have to work to tackle the challenge of labour shortages across all sectors. As the Minister of Labour has stated many times, and the programs that he has put forward many times, the purpose of those is to ensure that we have a skilled workforce all across the province, and that is exactly what we are committed to doing, delivering a world-class transportation system, which includes the ferries on Wolfe Island. And it also includes the investments that we have made to date on developing those ferries and developing new and improved electric ferries that are now in operation as well. We'll continue to work with the community in question and continue to improve upon those services.
I recognize the member for Brampton West.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Red Tape Reduction. At a time of global uncertainty, with rising costs, supply chain pressures, and economic instability putting added strain on families and job creators, people are feeling the squeeze. This is especially true during the time of year when budgets are tightest and household expenses are stretched to their limit. Speaker, families deserve real relief, not more paperwork and red tape slowing them down. Through cutting unnecessary and outdated regulations, our government has been focused on putting time and money back where it belongs, into the pockets of the people who earn it. Speaker, can the Minister please explain how our government's red tape reduction efforts are delivering real, practical savings for Ontario families and businesses when they need it most?
Minister of Red Tape Reduction.
Thank you, Speaker. Well, that member knows very well from his own community. He hears it firsthand from them. Every time that we can save those small businesses money, those manufacturers time and money, it's more money that they can invest in their community, especially this time of year. That member knows we inherited a deplorable record where Ontario was the regulatory capital of Canada. It was deplorable, Speaker. Instead, we've turned it around. We are now the best place to do business. In fact, thanks to the work our government has done through the Minister of Economic Development, we've attracted more jobs here. We're reshoring investments into Ontario. We're allowing businesses to know that we're there to help them move forward, not get in their way. We're reducing the red tape, not just for businesses to grow and employ people, but for everyday Ontarians. Whether it's helping them with their disability payments, whether it's helping them strengthen the justice system, we'll always put people above paperwork.
Back to the member for Brampton West.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the Minister for that strong response. The numbers speak for themselves, but what really matters to families and job creators is how those savings are being delivered on the ground. People in my community of Brampton West want to know where the paperwork is being cut, how approvals are being sped up, and how government is getting out of the way so they can get on with their lives. Speaker, through Bill 46, and our broader red tape reduction work, our government has taken targeted, practical steps to modernize outdated processes, digitize services, and eliminate duplicative rules across ministries. Speaker, can the Minister share some specific examples of how we are cutting red tape in real, tangible ways, and how these changes are making a direct difference for workers, families, and businesses right across Ontario?
Back to the Minister of Red Tape Reduction.
Thank you, Speaker. All our measures combined have really made a huge impact on Ontario, whether it's the nearly $1.2 billion we've saved people of Ontario and companies, where it's the 1.8 million hours we've saved them. That's time and money they can invest back into the economy, back into their families. And, Speaker, frankly, it's our government's real approach to put people in the centre of everything we do. We are laser focused on unlocking every part of our economy, continuing to grow our economy, continue to restore those investments, continue to grow those jobs. Where it's the forestry sector and Thunder Bay, way, whether it's our healthcare sector through Minister Jones, whether it's our mining resources, whether it's building more homes. Every step of the way, this government's been able to reduce red tape. We're bringing more rental units on board. We're unlocking jobs up north. We're creating roads to places where folks want to actually get to see their families, to save time to actually see their loved ones. And we're doing it all while continuing to protect Ontarians and standing up for them every step of the way.
I recognize the member for Waterloo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. My question is to the Premier. The region of Waterloo is in an unprecedented position. They announced last week that all housing development is paused because of an inappropriate and inadequate level of water infrastructure. They look to this government because you have changed the planning rules so many times. You have created chaos for municipalities across this province. And we all know, Madam Speaker, that the construction sector right now is hurting desperately. This will only lead to a drop in construction jobs that is obviously connected to infrastructure, which is caused by your downloading to municipalities. So my question to the Premier, when are you going to do your job and support municipalities, because they drive jobs in the province of Ontario, and we will never achieve our potential as a province without housing and infrastructure?
Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My rise to answer as the Acting Minister of Infrastructure. And to the member's question, this is the result of years of Liberal government inaction on infrastructure investments, quite frankly aided and abetted by the NDP for 3 of 15 years. That has changed under the leadership of Premier Ford. It is our Ontario Progressive Conservative government that has put in a record $4 billion in investments to support local water and critical infrastructure through our municipal housing infrastructure program. This program has seen great success thus far, and it has allowed local infrastructure projects to advance, helping to support the current housing supply and making new homes possible across our growing communities, both in Waterloo and across Ontario. Thank you, Madam Speaker.